Good morning. I guess it's time to see what's under the hood. Brain, one of the most amazing creations ever. Um, the complexity of it is unbelievable, and the fact that we know as much as we know talks about our resolve and commitment to understanding the mechanism of what creates our mind. Brain is the biological bodies of our mind. Um, so now we are trying to find some connection between neuro counseling and neuroscience and counseling. Well, neuro counseling is the integration of neuroscience concepts in work with clients through psychoeducation regarding a physiological basis of mental health issues by Russell Chapin, 2016. So there's a way we have to integrate this because we can help our clients by finding out what is going on inside the brains, and we have the science to do it. Neurocounseling provides a filter of brain science over the foundation skills, values, and counseling models adopted by the counseling profession. Luke Miller and McAuliffe, 2019. There is always, when you work with hypotheses, when you work with constructs, that has been always the uh, weak link in psychology. So, science based psychology has been able to prove psychology as a science rather than just a hypothesis and constructs. So, we need that, and brain helps us with that. Beacon and Field, 2017, further indicated that neurocounseling has become an area of specialization in the field of counseling. I was talking to one of my colleagues at the school who is getting her uh, doctorate, her PhD in clinical psychology. And I said, "What is new?" And she said, "It's all about neuroscience. We are becoming doctors rather than psychiatrists. I mean, to become a psychiatrist, you have to be a doctor rather than psychologist." So they are focusing on it also. It's not only counseling, it's also psychoanalysis and psychiatry is working with that. So, how do we try to get in there? How do try to make that connection? Is mindful approaches, creative arts intervention, yoga practices, having positive neurocounseling implication. You do these things and you help your mood, you help your brain, you help your health. Further, neuroscience based approaches have been identified as having success with multiple client issues, including depression, anxiety, and trauma. I took a certificate course in trauma and art, mostly working with children, and it's amazing what can be done by using arts and play therapy, for example, to get inside the children's head, the children who are traumatized or abused. And I have seen it, and I have been amazed by how it can become a science based method. This is what you do, and this is what you get. What was the saying? Birds fly and children play, and play is their story. What they put on as a play is how they are experiencing their lives. The nervous system is a network of nerve cells and fiber interconnected to conduct impulses from sensory input inside outside the body to processing centers which then convey impulses to direct responses of the body. It includes the brain and spinal cord with connections throughout the body. Okay, we need to know this. We need to know this, so learn how to use it to help our client. We cannot get to all the itty bitty little connections here and there. We got to know about it. But again, we are not going to be neuroscience brain surgeons or anything of that. We are just trying to learn to use that as a tool. And this is how it works. It works with sensation, stimuli from the outside. That neurons take that in and they change it. They stimulates emotions and stimulates and creates behavior. And this is also how we experience life as a kid. Once you are born, you have a clean slate, and then your brain is getting wired based on your experiences within your core caretakers, your experience with your mother, with your father, with your immediate family. Those are the ones that start creating those records, those strikes on the brain. And the more those uh, habits are growing, the deeper these strikes are going to be, and the more permanent. And that's where we get our clues. While most neurons are present at birth, more recently the understanding of neurogenesis in the adult brain has created a paradigm shift in how the plasticity and stability of the brain is viewed. Maybe about 5 or 10 years ago, every time you turned on PBS, it was talk about brain plasticity. There are people up front in that movement, Dr. Amen, which is famous, and you could see his um, program on PBS and also on YouTube about the different ways of scanning the brain and learning about the brain. He's been able to help many people by learning how to move within the. He's a psychiatrist and he's also an MD. So, I mean, to be a psychiatrist, you have to be MD. So the whole idea before was that the brain has certain number of cells, 100 million. Then it changed to 86 million active ones and 85 kind of a administration sort of things for the brain. But and they thought that it doesn't regenerate. You cannot create new cells. And then they found out that the brain is doing that actually throughout your life. So that brought all these new possibilities, how to find and affect the brain to be able to create new pathways through the brain and change behaviors. While most neurons are present at birth, more recently the understanding of neurogenesis, that's the word, neurogenesis, in the adult brain has created paradigm shift in how the plasticity and stability of the brain is viewed. Gross, Gross, 2000, page 67. Okay, so now we know that even adult brain can become functionally active and contribute to learning, memory, especially during their maturation phase when they have extraordinary plasticity. These are all good news. What this means is that part of the brain that is associated with memory, hippocampus, located in the area of the brain known as the limbic system, mammalian brain, is continuously generating new neurons. Voila. This is where we want to be. This is the discovery. this can this has changed, revolutionized the whole idea because we are learning all the time. We are creating neurogenetics is creating new cells, new pathways for us, and we can use that. I found two programs on the podcast which I enjoyed, uh, done by the same person, but looks at two different part of the brain and how, as counselors, we can get to work with the brain. Uh, One was Raisa Miller interviewing Dr. Rawson, developing and testing cognitive stimuli model. That's what Dr. Rawson does. Biological process, behavior outcome, cognitive neuroscience, a specific exposure impacting behavior. So again, working with cognitive models, trying to impact the brain and come up with new behaviors or get rid of some of the old behaviors. She works in a stress and development lab, and again, as I mentioned, um, the childhood, the upbringing, the experience of childhood shapes the children's brain. And when complexes are created, or because they are these paths that are created on the brain, and the history and memory of them has stayed. And every time that has happened to the child, every time he or she is abused, that path becomes deeper and more and stays there for longer time. It becomes permanent. So we have to find a way to get rid of these. So what happens in your childhood? People that bring you up, how they treat you, becomes the foundation of your life. And unfortunately, there are a lot of early childhood adversities. So, as I mentioned, with trauma and art, how they work with the kids, this is how some of the counselors are. They have a sample of kids that have had physical abuse, and usually, when one adversity starts with the kid, other adversities also come in, and there becomes a um, accumulation of all of these together, and there's a uh, cumulative risk approach. Um, so, what they have done, they have come up with this inventory of ACEs. These are the questions that they ask you about your childhood. I've gone through it myself. And it says, how was the uh, environment of the house for the child? Was it calm? Was it, noisy? Was there a lot of tension in the house? Has the child been punished? Has the child seen her parents fight? Because all this has affects it. They say even when the child comes home, the way his mother or father looks at him, how sweetly they look at him, it also affects the child. So this goes deeper than what we know. So once you go through these questionnaires and these ACEs, if you have, for example, 10 of them, then you are probably have some of those complexes and you are probably have been abused. However, the problem came out that different abuses could not be all the same. For a person who's brought up with the alcoholic father, and there's a different kind of abuse than a person that is brought up with the depressed mother who cannot pay a good attention, a motherly attention to his or her child because of the time that she has to spend working two jobs and taking care of the household. So that's the limitation of the ACEs, that there are different experiences and you cannot add them up and put them in the same plate in a way. So what they also did, they focused on dimensional adversity, coming up with new tests focusing on two specific categories: threats of harm and deprivation, specific accumulated studies. How do these adversities affect the brain and the nervous system? With threat is physical violence, emotional regulation, emotional reactivity, affects mid-front lobe, amygdala, memory and safety signals, results in a smaller hippocampus. Actually, physically affects the size of the hippocampus. Lack of security, negative memory impacts, safety signals. Amygdala, the amygdala, um, maybe gets enlarged, heightened reactivity to stimuli. The kid is always in fear, panic. Uh, Sound comes and the kid looks scared. These are all working on the memories of these traumas. Functional impact, reduced ability to regulate emotions, heightened threat detecting, and fear generalization. One of the things that common correlator that they have found on most of the kids that are abused is that usually these are, not all of them, most of them in a way, raised in poor household. Poverty puts such a stain on your life that you cannot clean it the rest of your life, because um, it's really one of the biggest traumas itself. Um, Brings deprivation, not having, as becomes a big complex in a way. So, deprivation, lack of environmental output, low level of cognitive stimulation, affects language and visual processing output. Deprivation more damaging than threat. So, what they do, they take two categories. One is threat, which is works with safety, and one is deprivation, not getting what you need as a kid to become an healthy adult. Neuroscience um, allows us to be able to find these, be able to categorize them, and be able to use behavior and teach how to deal with these things. I have seen videos of kids who go through these, and the effect on them is fantastic between the first day that they come to the workshop or to the doctor to the last day that they're treated and it's finished. So the other part that also I found with Marisa Miller was interviewing a completely different area, interviewing Cortland Dahl. He's works on neuroscience of contemplative practices for healthy minds. So we go from traumas to trying to get a healthy mind and more positive field in a way. Um, Cortland Dahl talks about the fact that how as a kid he had social anxiety, and that was a problem for him at school, and also one of his biggest fears was public speaking. Is not the only one. Most of us go through that. Um, so he started with mindfulness and contemplative practices, meditation with scientific research. So what happened is that he had to somehow come up with the idea to help himself. And he started doing the meditation. And that helped him plenty. He actually meditated all over the world, went all over the world. He spent 10 years in Tibet, and again, trying to find more and more facts about meditation and mindfulness. But he also knew that he has to have a scientific research with it to be able to prove that meditation that works, that mindfulness works, uh, yoga works. These are all allow yourself awareness of yourself. Allow yourself to become more conscious of your being, your movement, your breathing, and how working with those breathing exercises or movements can help you to alleviate your problems and help you become more healthy, which is the biggest problem. So he had to bridge the gap between the proactive wisdom and traditions of meditation yoga and the empirical grounding that he had to bring in science. So he was able to do that with practicing the meditation and yoga. And the side effects of the meditation was, again, more than anything, becoming having a better concentration for him and becoming a better student. So he worked on it because of his anxiety, but he also found out that doing these practices help him to uh, become a better student. He has more concentration, more attention. He can focus better. So he started, you know, doing more and more, and he created a center for well-being in the school in Palo Alto. Well, he also says that the practices of meditation, journaling, flourishes the mind, training the mind to elevate suffering. So, what you do is that you learn to work with your breath to be able to bring and get more oxygen to all your body faster, better when you meditate. So, meditation for your mind is like your exercise for your body. You have to look at it that way. You have to do it the same way. You have to practice it and make a habitual practice out of it. That's how you get better at it. Um, and what it does is training your mind, and in a way, by activating the brain networks. So, this medication, just getting oxygen better and deeper in your body, this relaxation, this awareness, this attention that you are paying to your body, all is positive and it flourishes your brain, it flourishes your mind, it makes you healthy. Um, Center for Healthy Mind, fostering wellness and well-being. That's what Mr. Dahl has created in Palo Alto. The four pillars of well-being are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. So you have it makes you more than anything conscious of your body. Again, he has this example that put your foot on the floor, but have the intentionality to focus on it, and it feels different. You feel your foot. So that's the concentration, that's the awareness that it gives you. It also connects you inside and out, connects you inside to get to know yourself, to become more aware of yourself, and brings insight, spirituality, things that we need in life, and purpose. Just the fact that you are doing this to help yourself, just the fact that in doing this, you're loving yourself, all have positive impact on your brain and on you. By training neurobiological mechanism, contemplative practice changes neurostructure. couldn't be better than that. Intention, awareness, intentionality affecting the prefrontal lobe to forming healthy habits. And it becomes, it helps you with your self-regulation, emotional regulation, enduring changes in your life, to be able to go through changes easier. And more than anything, we have talked throughout all our counseling sessions about self-awareness, consciousness. And I've always said in as many as these video blogs that I've had that that's the top. To become aware of yourself, to become conscious of yourself and your place in the universe, and your place in your society, and your place with your God. That is the most important. So this is another way to get there, a very healthy way to get there. So we are not just counselors anymore. We are counselors with awareness and understanding of the science of neuroscience, and neuroscience, which allows us. It's another tool in your tool bag to be able to use when the other tools do not produce the results you're looking for. You could use this. You could help your client, and you could help your counseling. Thank you.